From my personal experience, this is why, and how I believe, so many Hispanic Americans got roped into the cult of Donald Trump and right-wing conservatism. One of the many reasons why would be that because so much of that culture is heavily meshed with Catholicism, and very deeply actually conservative. A lot of the things that were happening back in 2020 with the LGBTQ and transgender movement, was in many eyes of Hispanics and Catholics too extremely progressive for their taste. This was way too much for the community to handle at that time. To this day I still have family members that are very extremely well, how do I say this? LGBTQ. Non-friendly, I should say. To put it very, to be very polite to them. They are very LGBTQ non-friendly, and especially trans non-friendly. So to have this entire movement kind of be like legalized and pushed into the spotlight the way it was all those years ago. It really stepped on a lot of the toes of a lot of like Christian/Catholic conservatives that were also Latino and Hispanic. It wasn't obviously too much to do with Trump's other policies or promises to build the wall. Even when Mexican Americans were being told about the wall and the detention centers they were too far gone in, their hatred of the leftist lifestyle/LGBTQ movement and their desperation to prove themselves good Catholics/Christians/Americans, that they became unpatriotic and ungodly in the process. The disconnect was like this with my own Mexican family. And because a lot of my family are conservative, this led them to, drink from the fountain of lies that was Donald Trump. And they, essentially bought the lie that, he's going to put a stop to that demonic LGBTQ stuff. For many of us growing up in Hispanics households we're told no, esa cosa es del diablo. That stuff is for the devil. You're not allowed to be LGBTQ or trans a lot of the times in Hispanic households. Now again, this is not speaking for everyone. I'm not trying to put words in the mouths of my people, or my fellow Hispanics, or Latinos, or Mexican Americans. This is just my own experience and my own familial experience that I'm speaking of. This kind of thing has happened in my family for sure. I know that if anyone has ever seen the movie Selena, she speaks on this briefly too, but you are not American enough for the Americans ever, even if you're born here like me, even if you speak fluent English, went through the entire education system, have like an actual career, like a respectable career, that is not enough? Like for you to be like a good decent citizen that did everything right and has never broken the law, that is still not enough. People still not enough. People still question. People still wonder like os cuesto. Okay? Then, if you're one of the smart ones, why are you here? Taking my things away, which is completely ridiculous to begin with. Why should we have to prove ourselves more to have to even be here? We were born here. I was born here. I have my birth certificate, which I now carry with me everywhere I go, and my ID and everything, just because it is terrible times, and it's ridiculous. Why should I have to carry my proof that I was born here? I've been here my entire life. And so a lot of times what happens is because a lot of these young Latino men and women, growing up and reaching young adult and voter status, were conservative and Catholic, plus eager to prove their American patriotism. Because you're never American enough for the Americans as a Latino American, Mexican American, Hispanic American, whatever you call yourself, you also and we grew up with a lot of shame. At least I know I did. Speaking for myself, I grew up being ashamed of where I came from. And being ashamed of my parents, and being ashamed that one of my parents couldn't speak English at all. It was uncomfortable, because you don't want to be ashamed of your parents and to have that installed in you on such an early age. Thank God I grew out of it, ashamed of them for other reasons now, but not for those societal reasons that I was pressured to be ashamed of them though, that's another thing. Yeah, so a lot of I always grew up with that shame of like, we can't talk of where we're from, or sometimes we're, able to pass, and a lot of the time people didn't even know I was Hispanic because I'm so light-skinned, and then I would become ashamed to tell them because a lot of people when you do tell them. And this would happen to me too, I would tell them, I am Mexican, and then they do start looking at you different. Now you do start looking at you with those judgmental eyes. So then, as a child, as an elementary schooler, or as a middle schooler, trying to join all of these really niche school activities/clubs. Like, especially growing up here in Minnesota. Yeah, I'm in Minnesota, it's really terrifying out here right now. todo esto es un trato con el diablo y la gente sufriendo por su gusto. But growing up in Minnesota, where there's so much white culture that surrounds you and all the time, and all you want to do is be part of that and be a part of the clubs and be a part of the culture that's up here. But you immediately get clocked for being different, or being other, because, oh no wait, you're other, you're Mexican, you're Hispanic, you're Latino, you're indigenous, you're all this, you're Guatemalan, Nicaraguan, Colombian, Cuban, you're all this or that, but you're other, and what you are is apart from us. You're not Minnesotan, despite so many of us, like I said, growing up here and living here all our lives and experiencing the education system, and all of the traditions that come with being a Minnesotan, we're still outsiders. It's not enough. We still have to prove ourselves somehow, all the time, and because of this, all of this that was going on with the transgender movement and youth culture. And, like I said, many conservative Hispanics and Mexicans and Latinos not vibing with that. Those sons and daughters that grew up in that environment, then became, desperate to prove their American patriotism, desperate to prove that they're not like the other immigrants. Saying to themselves and their fellow cultists that no, we're not, I'm not like them, I am not the one who jumped the border. I'm actually a good Latino, look, I'm gonna help. I'm gonna help the other white people round up the other Latinos, and you see, I'm a good one. I'm a good brown person. That's what's happening. They have fucked up and have trapped themselves within this ideology and cult. They bought the lies of a self-serving businessman, and now they've been so indoctrinated into it all these years later, that they are so disconnected from the truth of what's happening, and how they are being used like mindless idiots, to wage violence against their own people. Too far gone now that they can't reverse, and then they can't even admit that they were wrong, because admitting you were wrong now this far gone, they're too far gone. One can imagine as an adult admitting something that you were wrong about, even if it's something not even that big of a deal, is already very, very tough to do as an adult. So imagine them admitting that now. The same thing happened with the Nazis. You're so far disconnected that you can't admit you are wrong, because once you do, you're forced to, You have to go through like a certain, like internal death almost, because you have to come hate yourself for the things you've done, at least for a good while, to feel atonement for what you've done. That moment of self-realization of, oh shit, I really did that, I am the bad guy, and that kind of filos why, and that kind of folokatito na la kain, horrible reconciliation within oneself. It takes years, I know, because I've been doing it my whole life, because I've been reconciling with the fact that, again, with all this trauma and pain in my childhood, it takes years to deal through that kind of trauma. And these people, these ICE people that are also Latinos trying to prove their Americanness to their other malditos cultists of brothers, are now pushing new neo-Nazi beliefs onto the Hispanic youth so that they end up trying to buy their whiteness, and they're trying to prove to the other agents that are white that, oh no, I'm not like the other Latinos, look, I'm helping you guys, I'm not the bad guy, even though all of them are bad guys, they're all fucking neo-Nazi scum, anyways. Yes, that is how Latinos and Hispanics, in my opinion, got heavily indoctrinated into this cult. And it is a shame, because so many young people may be extremely afraid to willingly live with no outside support. They cannot pull out, because if they do pull out, who's to say that those same ICE agents aren't going to turn on them and then deport them? They are ruling by fear. The brainwashed, they've literally locked themselves in a metaphorical gas tank, because eventually, something is gonna happen to them in that tank. And even with them doing all this extra shit to prove that they're better than other Latinos, the other extremists could have a problem with them. And then their own livelihood could be on the line, even if they are in this moment helping them. But anyways, that's just what I wanted to say about all of this. I'm not a professional internet personality or YouTuber, or anything. This is completely unscripted. If anyone wants more content like this from me or my own opinions, please let me know. I would love to open a discussion, please. Everyone stay safe out there. Paz y amor.